Over the last few days, a number of reactions have emerged in the United States. Actions in Venezuela. Some are factual, some are emotional, some are celebratory. Others are deeply hostile to the very idea of international rules. To make sense of what is happening, it's not enough to look at one reaction in isolation. We need to hold several things in view at the same time. This commentary will walk through 6 interconnected elements: the facts of the operation, public celebrations, online backlash, the UN response, Canada's cautious positioning, and finally, a symmetry test that exposed what is really at stake. This is not whether Nicolás Maduro was a dictator. It's about whether the rules that are supposed to govern power still matter. Let's begin with what is broadly agreed. The United States carried out a large-scale military operation in Venezuela, involving airstrikes and special forces. President Nicolás Maduro and his wife were captured and removed from the country. The U.S. government justified this action through domestic criminal indictments. There was no UN Security Council authorization. Congress was not notified in advance. The U.S. President later stated that the United States intends to run Venezuela until a transition occurs, and explicitly linked U.S. involvement to developing Venezuela's oil sector with American companies. At that point, the action ceased to be an ambiguous intervention. It became an openly asserted claim of governance. Following this, videos circulated of Venezuelans, both inside the country and abroad, celebrating. Many expressed relief. Some were openly joyful. That reaction is understandable. Dictators often fall to popular relief. People living under repression can genuinely feel hope when long-standing ruler is removed. But popular relief does not determine legality, nor does it determine long-term outcomes. History has shown that populations can celebrate the removal of the leader and still suffer deeply from what follows. Relief and exploitation are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they often coexist in the early stages of foreign intervention. On Facebook, many responses followed a similar pattern. The argument was simple. Maduro was a dictator. Therefore, anything that removes him is justified. That logic collapses complex systems into a single moral axis. It bypasses questions of law, precedence, and consequence. It treats power as a self-justifying, so as long as the target is disliked. This kind of moral simplification is emotionally satisfying, but analytically dangerous. The most revealing reaction, however, came in response to comments by Anila Barbach, I hope I pronounced her name right, the president of the UN General Assembly, who states that the UN Charter is not optional and explicitly cited Article 2's prohibition on the use of force. The backlash was immediate and aggressive. International law does not matter. The UN is obsolete. Might makes right. These were not arguments about Venezuela. They were a rejection of the idea that rules should constrain power at all. That matters because it reveals something deeper than partisan disagreement. It reveals a growing comfort with post-rule worldview where legitimacy flows only from force. In contrast to social media reactions, the UN's response was measured but unambiguous. The Secretary General described the action as a dangerous precedent. The General Assembly President invoked Article 2 of the Charter, which explicitly prohibits the threat or use of force against the political independence of any states, I underscore, any states. Human rights investigators added an important clarification. Long documented crimes by Venezuelan officials do not justify a military intervention that breaches international law, and the illegality of such intervention does not erase accountability for past abuses. That distinction matters. It rejects the false choice between condemning Maduro and upholding the law. Both can be done simultaneously. Canada's response, articulated by Prime Minister Mark Carney, was notably careful. He reaffirmed support for the Venezuelan people, democratic transition, and international law, but stopped short of explicitly naming a UN Charter violations by the United States. This caution is not mysterious. Canada's relationships with the United States is structurally asymmetric. Trade exposure, tariff vulnerability, and security alignment all limit how directly Ottawa can confront Washington. This is what norm stress looks like for middle powers, affirming principles quietly while avoiding direct legal confrontation with a superpower. Imagine Russia crossed into Ukraine, seized President Zelensky, removed him to Moscow under Russian domestic law, and declared it would administer Ukraine's resources during a transition. There would be no debate about legality, no appeals to relief among some citizens, no ambiguity about sovereignty. The global response would be immediate and overwhelming. If an action is unacceptable when performed by an adversary, it cannot become acceptable when performed by an ally. International law cannot survive selective application. This is not about defending Nicolás Maduro. It's not about denying Venezuelans their relief. It's not even about the United States acting forcefully. It's about whether power still recognizes constraints. When forces precede law, when governance is claimed without mandate, and when rules are dismissed as optional, the system does not collapse all at once. It erodes. Quietly, incrementally, justified each time by the supposed exceptionalism of the moment. What we are witnessing is not just a crisis in Venezuela. It's a stress test of whether the international order still means what it says. And how that test is answered will matter far beyond this one country or this one leader. Thank you. This is J. Andre Faust, and take care. Till next time.